Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag? You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. I'd like to call the Commission on Human Trafficking Board meeting of January 23rd, 2025 to order. Ms. Monteleone would like to take the roll and to determine if we have a quorum today.
Chair Klug,
Here.
Chief Judge Sabella,
Here.
Member Rose. Here. Major Timko.
Here.
Corporal Shiver.
Here.
And Member Aguilar. You know, don't vote because today it's the primary member that votes. Commissioner Cepeda.
Present.
Member Groover Skipper. Member Webster.
Present.
Captain Carlisle.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
Member Cavotier.
Present.
Member Mobley.
Here.
Member Dickerson.
Here.
Member Davis. Member LaPierre.
Here.
Member English.
Here.
Detective English, I'm sorry. Member Loki. Officer Pascali. Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Great. Just wanted to say a few words before we have the election of officers. And first of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Cameron Cepeda for presenting the Commission on Human Trafficking with a proclamation declaring January 25th as the Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And as Commissioner said last week, thank you to all the members of this commission and our partners for everything they do to stop this horrible crime and help the victims become victors. I'd also like to thank the Board of County Commissioners in general for supporting this commission and providing the funding to pursue our goals and objectives. Additionally, I'd like to express my appreciation for those who have served in 2024 and are moving on in 2025, like former Public Defender Julie Holt, who was recognized for her service here, as well as the other members who cannot make it today. We have a new member, and I'll introduce her in just a few minutes. And finally, I'd like to thank Lisa Monteleone for all her assistance throughout the year. Hopefully everyone is aware that Lisa has many hats, and this is not the only board that she serves on. And so she's been a great assistance to me and the whole board. And we appreciate everything you have done, Lisa, throughout the year, and you continue to do for this commission.
Thank you. I'm a little embarrassed, so I'm
Yes.
probably changing color right now, but thank you for recognizing
So
me.
like I said, she really does have a lot on her plate, and this is just one of many things we do. So we don't have really a staff. It's really her and Mr. Parkinson. We have a couple people helping us out here, but it's the county attorney, and I'm going to introduce her next. In addition, Deborah Cromartie-Mincy is going to be doing our election of officers in just a minute, and appreciate all your assistance and guidance, especially when it comes to our resolutions and our bylaws. Sunshine, public records, I think we've been compliant for those. And so before I turn over Ms. Cromartie-Mincy to do the election of officers, I just want to recognize Bureau Chief Mobley. And this is, I think, your first official meeting for the board. I think you attended the steering committee meeting last month. Would you like to say a few words? Thanks. Sure. You don't need to, but put you on the spot.
Put you on the spot. Thank you all for allowing me to join. My name is Antina Mobley. I am the Bureau Chief of Misdemeanor, Juvenile, and Intake at the Public Defender's Office. I have been there for a pretty good while. I supervise. I supervise attorneys that are brand new to the office and handle intake cases, those in the juvenile division with the children, and also misdemeanor cases. In addition, I have tried everything from petty theft to homicide, so I kind of run the gamut and have done a little bit of everything in the office. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're glad you're here, and this is a great group of people here. And you'll see there's a diverse representation from different organizations. We're all working together to help create that awareness and education about the evils of human trafficking. Also, by the way, I do have, once again, these cards and things. We obtained these from, this is a federal campaign, Blue Lightning, and the Blue Campaign to basically eliminate human trafficking as well. If anyone's interested in these cards, this shows you how to recognize signs human trafficking. We also have some more ribbons. We'd like to have some ribbons as well. So, having said that, turn this over for election of officers.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Deborah Cromartie-Mincy, County Attorney's Office. I will be facilitating your election of officers for this year. First position is that of chair. I do believe there is a nomination already. Want to speak to that?
Yes, I have a nomination that was emailed into me last week, and that is for Member Connie Rose.
For the position of chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? Would be that there's only one nomination, Ms. Connie Rose. I'm not sure if we even need to vote on that, but just so that we can certify it, we can go ahead and vote by a show of hands for Ms. Connie Rose for the position of chair. It looks like it's everyone. Member Connie Rose, I will turn it over to you, and let's congratulate Member Rose for being our new chair.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I think just say thank you at the moment. I'm like, am I leading this meeting now, or Charles finishing up today?
Yes,
So,
you are.
I can help you
great. Oh, great. Thanks. So does that mean I have to wait and then you do co-chair and all that stuff, or
If you
like, don't
want,
you finish it all, this part?
If you want me to, I'm
Do you
happy
mind?
to. No, not
Do you
at
mind?
all. Not at
So I
all.
can learn from you? Okay, thank you.
Second position is that of vice chair. Are there any nominations? I'm not aware of there being any other okay, there is. I'm sorry.
I do have one nomination for vice chair, and that was also emailed into me last week or the week before, and that is for Member Groover Skipper.
Member Groover Skipper, are there any other nominations from the floor? Be it that there's only one nomination for vice chair. Let's go ahead by show of a vote. Let's go ahead and vote by show of hands for Member Groover Skipper. Member Groover Skipper, looks like everyone has voted for you, and you are the new vice chair for this year. Let's congratulate Member Grover Skipper. Say that really fast. And I believe our final position is that of secretary. Any nominations that you're aware of? Any from the floor?
Don't all jump at once.
Going once? Going once again?
If the chief judge is interested in continuing in that role, I would like to nominate him.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to respectfully decline based on other responsibilities that are increasing with my position as the chief judge.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm going to have to respectfully decline.
Any other nominations? It's not that hard of a job.
Chair Klug, you can testify, or Chief Judge Sabella, you can testify to the assistance that you received?
Absolutely incredible assistance. If I can do it, anyone can do it. How about that?
Well, the only thing I can suggest is that we leave the position open until the next full board meeting. We can
recruit.
We can recruit at the steering committee meeting, and that's in February. So then we can come back and vote for the secretary position come March, when the board meets next. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Member Connie Rose, I will turn this now over to you.
Oh, yay. Okay. I was like, oh, Charles will finish today. All right, so bear with me. Have some grace, please. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. So I believe our next is our meeting recaps and of our minutes. So let's go ahead and let's look at August 22nd, 2024. It was a special call meeting. If you've reviewed those notes, is there anyone that will motion to approve the meetings from August 22nd, 2024?
Motion.
Second. Do you need to say your name when you motion, please?
Captain Cryle, motion.
Thank you.
Groover Skipper, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, yay. August 22nd, 2024, special meeting minutes passed. And then we also have November 21st, 2024. It was our full board meeting. Again, it's our minutes. If you could please just take a quick review. And then if someone would please motion to approve.
Motion, Craig Timko.
This is Charles Klug. I second as well.
Perfect, thank you. Minutes have passed. We have to vote. Sorry, everybody vote. I apologize. Everyone vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes have passed. Thank you for the grace. And then the next on our agenda, which will help if I just pull that off, is our meeting, we just did our meeting recap. So steering committee report.
Yes, and I'm still the chairman of that committee, so.
Oh, perfect. So go for it.
Yes, and so.
Thanks, Charles.
Yes, and I'm hopefully that someone will take that leadership role as well. As far as the steering committee meeting, last month, we talked about the strategic plan again. And one of the things we talked about there was also increasing housing options. And that's been a big issue in our strategic plan. And I think something also we like to repeat every time is we have go back and look at our goals and objectives from our strategic plan that we did earlier this past year, and make sure we keep our eyes on the prize there as far as trying to follow up with those items. Housing was a big issue that we talked about, and we tried to address some of those issues at the last steering committee meeting as well. The crisis center contract modification was also brought up and discussed during that meeting, as well as a lot of discussion about the public installation of the mural and where that should go, and different words we could use and possibly not use. I'm not sure we have any updates on that as well. But we've if you're aware, from the past, we did hire a contractor to create this mural. But with that came a lot of different types of potential wording to put on the mural. Since that's going to be on the Department of Transportation's facilities, I think this has to go all the way up potentially to the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and the Governor for approval. And so we did talk about quite a bit of that. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add any additional information about the mural and what you thought about it from the steering committee. I think Ms. Groover-Skipper.
Chair Klug, I know there was a lot of back and forth about what would be the most appropriate phone number to use on the mural. And to my knowledge, we landed on the state human trafficking number, the one that former Attorney General Moody had implemented across the state, because one of the reasons I think was because that might be a little less challenging for the Florida Department of Transportation and our governor to sign off on. Am I thinking, remembering
That's correct.
correctly?
That was our
Right.
thought.
That's right.
Okay. Because someone asked me the other day, why that number? And to me, I remember the conversation that was because it might be an easier pass to the powers that be.
Right, that's absolutely right. And so there was a number of things. Of course, we have the Don't Buy at Tampa Bay, and the human trafficking, and was it 1-855 FLA SAFE, is right? Is that one we could use?
The number that's advertised on the billboards and in all of the materials that are broadcast is the city tip line.
Okay.
So it's a text city tip to a 5-digit number. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It is in your packet. I think I printed some of the pages from the campaign. So it's city tip to 847411. That's the number that's used in the campaign. There is not a phone number that is published, it's just a text number. But, and Rob can speak to this as well, the Florida legislature passed House, well, it was a consolidated bill,
7063.
7063.
Committee substitute for House Bill 7063.
And that requires that any phone number being used or website is the Florida state number. So that is the number that we have to go with.
And that number is 855-FLA SAFE, S-A-F-E, and I believe that translates to 855-352-7233.
Could you repeat that?
855-FLA SAFE, S-A-F-E.
It should be in your packet. You can have that.
It is
Yeah,
digitized.
as well.
Oh, sorry. 855-352-7233. And that was established in May of last year.
Okay. So that's what's on our, the drawings right now. If y'all have copies of those, you should have that. And as you know, there's a lot of wording on here. We didn't realize that this all had to be approved, and so we're still going through that process. Because of that, I think it's still going to be a few months away. Is that right, Lisa?
Several months away, because after you either approve or not today, the renderings and the phone numbers and all of those items at this meeting, FDOT has a process that you heard about at the steering committee meeting, and the location, the columns have to be inspected and approved for the application of paint for any structural or any repair work that FDOT would have to do. It's got to go to their maintenance engineering section. Then, as you discussed, it has to be forwarded to the district secretary, District 7 secretary here locally. He has to approve it, and then it runs up the chain, and as you said, it might go all the way to the governor's office. We don't know that yet, but there is talk that it might have to get that approval even at that high level. Then there's forms to fill out. There's a Board of County Commissioners process that we have to go through for a maintenance agreement. So it's going to be quite a while yet. Approving it here is the first step forward. But it will get done. It will get done. The Tampa Foundation is managing the process, of course, with my help and other help that I enlist from time to time. So we're forging new ground, let's say, with FDOT. So that's why it's going to take a little longer.
So maybe round 2 won't take as long, hopefully. We shall see.
FDOT's process is FDOT's process. If it might take less time here, that would shorten up the process.
Okay, that generally ends my report. Yeah, unless you have any questions. Thanks.
Well, in the steering committee report, don't we also have the crisis center contract modification? Yes. Okay. So in our packet, or do we want to follow the agenda, or do we want to follow the packet? Lisa?
That would be entirely up to you. HTV is set up to follow the packet, I believe.
Okay.
So if it's customary to show the general public on screen what it is that you're looking at. So they have been provided with some of the files to that end. So the steering committee heard the full crisis center presentation.
Mm-hmm.
The steering committee did ask for a couple of changes to the contract. Those changes have been made and sent over, and that is what is reflected in your packets. And I chose a few of the slides to provide to HTV that would be helpful. So the first one is what the request is, and this slide deck has also been changed in accordance with the requests that were made at the steering committee. So the first slide is the proposed modifications. The highlighted yellow section is the 60-day follow-up that was requested with human trafficking care coordination from the Crisis Center. And Member Dickerson, if you want to speak to this, you're much more familiar with your own contract than I am, and you assisted in the presentation during the steering committee meeting. So if you want to take it from here, there's also a statement I have asked our legal department to make sure that everyone is aware that although Member Dickerson is a full member, a voting member of the Commission on Human Trafficking, there is a conflict since this is a contract with the Crisis Center. She has been provided with Form 8B, Memorandum of Voting Conflict for county, municipal, and other local public officials, which she will fill out, provide to me, and it will be published with the recap of this meeting.
And I think you all are aware, whenever, per law, whenever there is or appears to be a conflict of interest, the member should abstain from voting, so she will not be able to vote. She would need to complete this form, and upon completion, give this to the secretary. Be it that there is a vacancy for that position, it will be going to Lisa here until we do have a secretary. And also, you will need to place on the record the need for the abstention from voting.
You need me to state that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I am not voting, Member Dickerson, because it would be a conflict of interest based on this being a Crisis Center of Tampa Bay contract, and I'm an employee of the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. The Advocacy Care Coordinator, the ask to change, the Human Trafficking Care Coordinator, the ask to change is from a 60-day follow-up to a 14-day follow-up. We have found that it's rare with our clients that they are still with us 60 days later. They have oftentimes gotten their referrals and they're not still working with our staff. So we would like to be able to ensure that they are getting linked to other resources. And we have found that to be more successful if we can do that within 14 days instead of the 60 days that was originally requested. And do you want me to speak on the second thing, or do we?
Next slide, please.
The second request is that we formerly had a nurse ambassador, and essentially we are asking that that job description be slightly altered to not be a requirement of a nurse, and that it be changed to a requirement of a bachelor's degree, and retitling it Human Trafficking Ambassador. Essentially, the role's the same. They can still provide the same kinds of trainings, still the same, meeting the same requirements of the role. What we found with the nurse ambassador is that we were really lucky to hire the person that we had at the pay rate that we could pay. So we've had the job posted for quite some time for a nurse, and we just aren't even getting an application. So we would like to continue this role at the Crisis Center, but make the requirement at a bachelor's level instead of a nurse.
I'd like to ask, where are you putting the application information out? You said since no one's hiring, I mean, it seems like that would be a good job for someone, you know, and nobody's even responding.
Right. It was posted on Indeed, and then we oftentimes have it on our website as well.
It's a tough sell because the pay rate, I mean, a nurse can make a lot more money somewhere else, quite honestly. And it's a specific role. Like, we were very lucky to have the person that we had. She very much had a passion for the community and human trafficking, and then she got her doctorate and went on to do other things.
Gina, it's Connie. Will the pay rate stay the same with the title change and the education requirement change?
No, the pay rate is going to decrease, but I cannot speak to that today. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, too, that to my understanding, this job description isn't necessary for a nurse to fill this job description, that the former employee really didn't do nursing-type duties. Is that correct? I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, so in full transparency, she actually is a nurse for the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, but that is a completely separate role. She's a sexual assault nurse examiner, so a completely separate role. And the proposal today is to actually accept this changed job description. The former job description listed that the requirement was a nurse. I also wanted to say, while we're speaking about the pay rate, that the former person that worked was considered full-time, but she worked about 30 hours a week. And now with this new role, we're going to ask that it be 40 hours a week. So we're getting more bang for our buck. Is that appropriate to say that?
Ms. Dickerson, I'd also like to add that during negotiations with the committee, you also agreed to incorporate additional community-based trainings regarding human trafficking and the behavioral health issues surrounding it at no extra charge, correct?
That is correct. There is definitely capacity to do more trainings in this role.
So if this commission decided that a certain area of the public or sector of the public needed to be trained on this, you would be able to provide that curriculum to them, that service to them?
Do you mean a certain area, law enforcement, hospitals? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
Just going back to the committee itself, we discussed those revisions and we accepted those. So I'd make I moved that we accept those revisions we just discussed.
Second, Groover Skipper.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passed.
If we can go back to the public installation, the draft renderings and the locational criteria, and just take a vote on that. I don't know if that was fully discussed or if anybody had any further questions.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what section?
The last one under the steering committee, the public installation, the mural, the draft, we talked about it, but we did not vote on, well, you did not vote on it.
Actually, Ms. Rose, we'd like to just discuss the various options we had there. There's a number of different options for murals. Each one had some wording in that. I think we were concerned about the wording. The district secretary, the secretary of transportation, potentially the governor would have to approve that over a period of 4 or 5 months. But as far as moving forward with that, I think there were different murals that we looked at, different artist renderings, and the different sayings. So maybe if you want to go through each of those, we can talk about that.
Absolutely, thank you. So if you go ahead and you look in your packet, you're going to have a rendering of each mural. There's also a map further along, but of each mural. And in the steering committee meeting, the conversation that we had was to add hashtag Don't Buy It Tampa Bay, because we were looking for consistency, right? Continuity and consistency with our Don't Buy It Tampa Bay campaign. And then, of course, hashtag human trafficking. We've already discussed about the number and why we need to use, and that it would be basically mandatory to use the 855 Florida Safe. And then if you look, each mural depicts a different picture, right? So it's a different message. So what we were trying to do was not just have your traditional human trafficking message that's kind of generic out there, but to really not only create a work of art that would be attractive because it's kind of the entryway, believe it or not, underneath the interstate, but also just something different to attract the eye and create conversation. Because the other reasoning behind putting the murals so close and underneath the overpass is that we also have a place as a commission and other organizations throughout the county. They can use it for press conferences, different events, et cetera, understanding, where it is and that we might have to bring some security in. But the first one is about human traffickers trick victims by making false promises. And so you can pretty much just kind of go back through them, right? The second one is about being forced to work with no pay and about bringing that unity. The third one is about learning the signs. So we did grow, right? Because learning the signs, thought process moving forward to grow. If you go to the next page, right, it's about hope, and we did flowers, right? Because a lot of us talk about, when there is someone that identifies from moving from a victim to a survivor, right, there is something about blossoming, right? There is something about planting seeds and watching them grow. The next one is about see something, say something. That's pretty universal throughout the country, right? For gun violence, trafficking, other crimes against individuals, see something, say something, so that consistency. And then you can also see that it says safe, as well as love isn't supposed to hurt. The next is you are priceless, and that really follows. We wanted to try to bring in the previous mural that was completed, and it was about that you are priceless, right? And so with that is love, important, brave, and human traffickers trick victims by making false promises. And if there's any of these as we're going through this, please let us know if there's anything that you feel does need to be changed. Then moving farther, it's a brighter path. That's with the lighthouse. Then it's about you are home, and it's the one with the butterfly and the home and the flowers on the bottom. Then moving over to human trafficking victims are forced to work with no pay. And then, of course, we have different faces, right? So really in our diversity, having different faces of what a victim and a survivor could look like. So that is pretty much it. We have 12. There is a map that does show where each of the columns, each of the murals is going to be placed. We're hoping that we'll be able to continue with that map, but I believe some of it is going to depend on when FDOT goes in and does their inspection and say, yes, this column is safe and it can be painted and et cetera. So is there any questions or any other conversations about the languaging on the murals? Yes.
Hi. Sergeant Shriver, Tampa Police. So my question is for the hashtags is if somebody uses the hashtag, like say they hashtag a picture on social media because they see this, is somebody going to monitor those hashtags? Like if there's some type of trafficking that's done on social media, a lot of times that's what the hashtags are used for. Mm-hmm. So my question is if we put this on the murals and people hashtag human trafficking for, say, they think it's a victim, is there any monitoring of that?
I'd have to look at the FKQ and see if they have it built in, because I would believe that if anyone is going to monitor, it would possibly be them because it is their hashtag. It is that hashtag. So we can go ahead and look into that and find out. Thank you, Sergeant. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, yeah, I really like it, but it could be just my copies that I have, the way they're printed, but like the words, some of the wording seems like really tiny, and can't see the words clearly. For example, the one that says safe, love isn't supposed to hurt, it seems like the dark letters with that color is, you can't see it very well. It could be my copy, though, that I have. Could be just.
Are you on Commissioner, are you on the one with all 12, or where they're spread out? Because there's.
The one you were just reading that said this one.
Oh, this one, the larger one. Okay.
The artist, Leah Tinsley, is on the line, so she can answer any questions. She did email me today in response to a question that the Florida Department of Transportation had with how large in size these were. So just to put it in perspective, each mural, each column painting will be 4 foot wide by 9 feet tall.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to visualize what that will look like when you're sitting in the car or walking on the sidewalk, what a 4 foot wide, excuse me, banner will look like. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a dry throat. But Leah, if you're there and available, I don't know if maybe you can lend some perspective to the commissioner's question?
I think that helps, like you were saying, Lisa, about this actual size of it would seem much larger.
I
But
share your concern, because it does look small.
Yes.
But I'm not a muralist, so my perspective may be different. But, oh, there she is. Hi, Leah.
I'm here. Yeah, so whenever there's a rendering, obviously the lettering is going to be much smaller to the eye. Once it's blown up on a very large scale, those lettering are going to be very legible. I can't speak to how legible it'll be when, people are driving by, but the verbiage will definitely be able to be seen when you are at the light stopped, as well as when you're walking by on foot.
Thank you, Leah.
You're welcome.
I have a
Yes,
sorry,
Charles.
comment. During the steering committee, we did discuss that issue about legibility, and the idea was that you would not be driving and reading at the same time. But it's more likely you would be stopped, and there's a lot of traffic in that area. So I think that was part of that. It was not, because we had some discussion, can you read it while you're driving? And I don't think that was really the intention of the artist, to be able to read it while you're driving. It's more if you were stopped, and there's a lot, like I said, a lot of congestion, or if there's events there, we would be able to read that. But each of these columns are 12 separate columns, and so there's separate different types of murals and separate writings, and create interest versus just having one. And I think that was part of the concept. But the artist may be able to clarify that.
Yes, when we had the meeting and we discussed the art that was going to go on each one of them, it was discussed that the theme would be different for each one, versus having one wall where it was just one theme.
It's Connie. The other thing, if you look at the map, right, so when Leah was laying it out, okay, so number 4, which is Hope and has just wording on the top, number 8, which is the safe one, number 10, and number 12. They're both where you're going to be at a stoplight, so you're going to be sitting at that stoplight, and you're going to be able to see them. So if you're coming down, I think it's Scott Street, I don't know, the exit off the interstate, I apologize, I drive it every day, but whatever that road is, right? If you're coming from the west, okay, and you're at that light at Marion, okay, you're going to be able to see murals here, the ones that have a lot of lettering. If you're coming down Marion, you're at that stoplight, you're going to be to see the ones that are facing this way. And that's how, if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, that's how you set up which murals were going to go on what columns?
Correct. There was certain murals on the columns that I circled, the numbers 4, 8, 10, 11, and 12. And those columns were specifically selected to be at the positions of the streets where people would be parked and be able to read the verbiage. One of those being Don't Buy at Tampa Bay. The other one is the Hope, the safe one that was mentioned earlier, You Are Priceless, and Every Human Matters.
Any additional questions?
Cheers.
Yes.
I don't have a question. I just want to publicly thank Leah for her time and passion and her talent in putting all of this together, and to be so willing to make the changes that we've suggested to her. So Leah, thank you so much for all of this work.
I appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me to create this for Tampa, for the survivors, for the community. And as we were saying earlier, it's not just a campaign. It's not just getting a message across. It's also creating artwork that is inspirational and very powerful for the community. They will be drawn to it. And this is something that I think is really going to benefit that area.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much. Any other questions while we still have Leah with us? Good. At this point, do we still need to vote on this again? Yes. Yes, all right. So we need to go ahead and vote on the approval of our murals and the languaging and the phone number. So if we could please have someone nominate. Thank you. Charles, second? Second, okay, great. Everyone that's approved, say aye. 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 Passed. Anyone against? No? Good. I wasn't paying attention, so I wasn't looking around the room. I apologize. Lisa, do you need anything else for the murals?
No, that is all. Now we'll jump with both feet into that FDOT process and see how that goes. I'll be in touch with Elaine Isles, their transportation consultant, and with Roger Roscoe, and start that train down the tracks, to use a transportation euphemism. But if we could go back as well to the first item under the steering committee, and if Chair Klug can talk a little bit more about the steering committee. We do have benchmarks to meet for the action plan, and in your packets you'll find a colorful grid. There's actually, it's two-sided. The first one has the strategies for supportive housing. This was discussed at the steering committee. The entire strategic plan was discussed at the steering committee, and it was decided there, and anyone who's at the steering committee meeting, or Chair Klug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was these two strategies, or these two goals, that you were going to take up first. There was a presentation by Terry Ballier, who provided a lot of information, and anytime Mr. Parkinson wants to jump in here, that'd be great. But she talked a lot about the work that they're doing, the Hillsborough County Children's Network, for supportive housing, and there was a lot of discussion on needs and, you know, finding foster families that were trained in specific issues of taking in children who have been part of the trafficking system.
I think the takeaway message from that meeting was that the Children's Network of Hillsborough is certainly interested in a partnership to enhance and expand the system's capability for those youth. Would you agree? And my understanding was she was going to be going to the drawing board and sending us some materials on how this commission could better partner with serving youth or HT survivors. And as a reminder, from the reports that we presented to this group last year and the year before, we have good data on the number of HT survivors that Children's Network of Hillsborough is serving. Concrete operational data on those youth. So once she provides that, we'll have a better idea how you can partner with them.
I just asked HTV to check and see if Ms. Ballier was, she is in the meeting, so she is also on WebEx and can answer any questions that you may have about what it is that the Children's Network how they can work with the Commission on Human Trafficking to address the concerns that you all have about housing for young adults, teens, children. Ms. Ballier?
Hi, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting. Absolutely, we're going to be providing you all with some additional information. For those of you who don't know, Children's Network is the lead agency for child welfare. Currently, we have about 2,300 kids in the system overall. That doesn't mean that they're in the foster care system, but that does mean that they're in the child welfare system. And when we look at our youth that are involved and have been identified as human trafficking, that is the point in time where we need assistance and we need help. I think that what I voiced when I was in the steering committee is that we absolutely need assistance around recruitment of said foster homes. Whenever we do identify human trafficking youth, we have to cross over county lines to be able to place a child, because we don't necessarily have anything here in Hillsborough County as it relates to a foster home. And it really allows for some barriers. If we have a foster home that steps up and says they're willing to take a youth, we have to really look, obviously, as you all well know, the surroundings. Are there other kids in the home? Do we have to place that child or that youth in a bedroom by themselves? And typically the answer is yes. So there's all these it's red tape that really we have to work through. And so my ask was that, yes, I would love to be able to partner with you all around the recruitment piece of identifying proper homes and training for this identified population. So whatever it is that you all need from me, I'm certainly willing to provide. What I shared with the steering committee when I met with them some time ago was that we had, I believe, and I could be off on a number and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but it was under 10 verified human trafficking youth that we have in our system of care. Obviously one is too many, but we know that we have to have proper placement for them. So just to kind of put things in perspective, I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
I don't have any questions, Ms. Ballier, but thank you for attending and making that statement. And looking forward to see additional information and exactly how the Commission on Human Trafficking can be of assistance. But for members, I'd like to draw your attention to the strategies that are on that colorful page. So there's evaluate pre-existing organizations within the county providing services to survivors, invite identified agencies to present at subcommittee. And then there's strategy 2, talks about distributing supply kits. Strategy 3, explore housing options, services tailored for non-English speaking survivors. On the second page is the providing specialized training for foster families and advertise for more trauma-informed foster homes. So it would be that second page that it seems to fall in line with what Ms. Ballier was speaking about. And to move forward with those items, there's going to, I'd say most likely be, a budget request. And I know that last year it was discussed that anytime that we are going to fund, we have to make it a more formal process, so that there are other agencies, there are other providers that may be involved in these activities and want to participate in whatever process we have when we are considering a budget allocation. And thank you again to Commissioner Cameron Cepeda for giving us the budget that we have so that we can provide these agencies or the providers with the money that they need, because there is a lot of underfunded agencies in the space. So, you know, if you'd like to take that up, it is discussed at the steering committee once already, but I think it would probably be appropriate for the full board to weigh in on which of these goals and strategies that they want to pursue and in what order they want to pursue them, because this strategic plan was laid out with action steps to kind of keep you all moving along and meeting the benchmarks and having quantifiable results from the commission, so that next year when the chair gives the annual report, this could be listed in the accomplishments. And I'm looking at you, Chair Klug, because you just gave the annual report.
Yeah, and I was just going to also just clarify, as far as the 100-day bold action plans, the first one was, of course, housing for adults, and the second one was housing for children. And so when we did our strategic plan back in late August, we're looking at trying to help young adults that are over 18 or over, but also children. And then with respect to the children, we looked at group homes, I think, as an opportunity, but also they found out foster homes are better. I think we found that they had better results, is my understanding. And so this is what that action plan is saying, is that identify these child welfare point of contact for high-risk identified individuals through this foster care alliance. I mean, that might be a better way to help these children get away from their communities and then provide necessary care that they need. So we're trying to look at different funding options. I think there's still a dearth of those possibilities around the state, especially locally. But this particular strategy is for the children. And also going back to the 100-day action plan, we decided, we came with a strategy back in August. Let's make sure it's not just sitting on the shelf. And let's have these benchmarks and have some plans, and this is the first part of that.
Charles, I don't know if this is a conversation for here or for the steering committee, but going through this strategic plan, what comes up for me is how are we going to be able to spend the dollars that we have and adhere to this? Because when I look at this, one, it's very long-term, it's going to take a long time. However, I don't see how we're going to be able to go through our budget this year with what we have planned here. And there seems to be some crossovers. So I'll just give an example on strategy number 2 for housing of adults, right? Strategy 2 says create basic supply kits and distribute to law enforcement. There's already agencies that are out there that are doing that. And Misty, I think that you could even speak to that. I'm not really sure if that's such a need because a lot of organizations just have them stockpiled. But Misty, can you speak to that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay, Connie. Yeah, I would agree with you. There are several churches and other agencies that I know will come together and put together various, we call them go bags or supply bags for survivors, which usually do have a change of clothes, shoes in there for them, some basic hygiene, things that they might need if, recovered during an emergency recovery where they need a change of clothes. But yes, a lot of times churches and other organizations will provide those to NGOs.
So would that be something that we would want to keep in our strategic plan because it's a redundant service and there really is an abundance, it's out there?
Yeah, I think when we had the workshop to come up with this, I think we were trying to brainstorm our different committees of different things we can do to assist. And we found out there was, like I said, there's a lack of funding, perhaps, in different areas. How can we help out? And it wasn't supposed to be just to supplant that. I think some of this might be redundant, but there's a way we could help. But there's some funding that could assist in these areas. I think that was the intention.
If we can maybe hear from the law enforcement around the room, you're the ones who are showing up on the scene. And do you feel, you're smiling at me, Sergeant Shriver, so do you feel that you have what you need when you show up on a call for, an encounter survivor?
I would say we have had a good amount of go bags we had all the backpacks, and they are donated to the department pretty regular from different agencies and organizations. I don't think that there's ever been a time when we didn't have a bag when we needed one.
I have a question on that. Is there a way that we can amend and instead of basic supply kits so food is always a big thing, right? People come, they're always hungry. right? But we traditionally can't give gift cards, and not every advocate in law enforcement has the extra funds to be able to go buy food for everyone. Could we not consider that a basic need and somehow figure that?
Well, if I may, there was a provision in the contract, the previous funding cycle, 2024, with the crisis center. So if the person is transported to the crisis center has the funds now for gift cards so that they can get these victims or survivors at that point something to eat, or something that they don't have readily in the supply closet to give to them. If there is some specific need that this person has and they can't fulfill it with what they have on hand, but that's provided they get to the crisis center.
Right.
But that was a provision that was asked specifically for, or it was asked specifically by this committee to be included in the funding we gave the crisis center in fiscal '24.
One of the things that we have run into problems with is cell phones specifically, because typically when we have a survivor, we take their cell phone because it has all of the evidence on it, and then we have a victim now who has no communication, no way to communicate with anyone. So I think that having cell phones with, like minutes type thing for the survivors would be very beneficial. Nobody donates that. And we did run into problems with the gift cards. Whenever we're taking a police report, we can't give a victim something monetary. It's just, it doesn't work out. so yeah, we did, our victims advocate has been working with the crisis center to try to get the gift cards whenever we need them. And what else do you think we need?
Well, I guess just to elaborate on that a little bit, I think when we were talking about supply kits, it wasn't necessarily the lack of access to them, but the content of the supply kits is just kind of adding important things to the supply kits besides just clothing, that sort of thing. I think she touched on with cell phones. I just had a situation a couple weeks ago with a victim. We took her cell phone, and one of our community partners did not have a way of contacting that victim, or the victim had no way to contact them because law enforcement had the phone. So we had a bag to provide with clothing, but we weren't able to actually establish communication with organizations meant to assist. So I would say if there are organizations that are already supplying these kits, maybe we could suggest to them other things that are needed in there, mainly being things like communication and then also, like food. For example, there's an organization that helps with housing temporarily for hotels and that sort of thing. What they don't provide is access to food. So we've had situations where we've placed a survivor in a hotel room for a couple of days, but we weren't able to provide them access to food. And in some of those cases, they didn't have a way of communicating even with the organizations that were tasked with assisting. So there's certainly some need there to expand what's in the supply kits, because quite frankly, it's not substantial enough or just realistic in the needs that are had to be met at that moment.
If I could add to the discussion, I've had the privilege of participating in developing some of these kits over the years. 2010, 12-ish, I actually worked with the FBI and a couple federal law enforcement agencies. Back then, we called them comfort kits for these types of situations. And what I found is that there were often parallel efforts that weren't well coordinated, and a law enforcement agency would get them from multiple sources. So I think, like you said, that is less of an issue. Now, in our discussions with the crisis center, one of the things that they were very verbal and articulate about is that they needed some of those emergent things like food, and we call them incidentals that maybe we forget about in developing programs and contracts that these survivors needed. The fact that we're funding, we've cognitively reframed the position over at the crisis center, and that person is now an ambassador, I think that poses an opportunity for us to have a central point, a central person for LEOs that are engaging these issues to contact and maybe dole out these food, and I like the term store cards because of some financial federal issues that calling them gift cards brings to bear. So store cards so that those individuals can access clothing, food, et cetera, things like, you know, $50 Visa cards where you can do each and everything that an individual might need. And then buying prepaid phones for those situations when the LEOs need to take those smartphones into possession to use as evidence. And that data process sometimes takes a while. It takes getting subpoenas from some of our national carriers, which can literally be months before those go through. So having those individuals have access to communication is vital. And again, that's something that popped up in former Chair Klug's subcommittee in discussions with the Crisis Center, that those follow-up duties, it becomes problematic when that individual does not have a mechanism for consistent follow-up, especially once they're able to make contact with distant relatives or families. They still need to follow up, but there's no mechanism for that. So I think you're on a thread of knowledge here that can help us significantly improve the program. The fact that we've changed up the Crisis Center certainly affords us an opportunity to maybe put some of those resources there. And Crisis Center, I think, is ready to chime in on that. And is that a possibility?
Thank you. Yes. I probably would like to give a plug and take it even a step further that any victim in the community that identifies as a victim of human trafficking should be referred to us. Like, we have somebody specifically, a human trafficking care coordinator, who is going to do all of that coordination of resources and is going to identify what the needs are and how we can get it for them, or how we can get them connected with somebody who can get it for them. And I'm going to, just as a side note, I'm going to reach out to Charlene about the phones. Okay. It's a good idea. Thank you.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, strategy 1, we will pursue 2 things: providing more specific needs for consideration is going to come from Ms. Ballier over at the Children's Network of Hillsborough County, and look at ways to open the process for other agencies and organizations to apply for possible funding. And then strategy 2 would be reworded based on what the chair has stated, that it's not basic supply kits that need to be distributed to law enforcement, but just follows the conversation that just took place between law enforcement, the Crisis Center, and Mr. Parkinson. So that would then go to strategy 3, and explore housing options and services for tailored for non-English speaking survivors. Maybe it's just me, but I feel that is very general, and so that still needs to be fleshed out, I think, and that can be discussed at the steering committee meeting. Commissioner, were you wanting?
I was just going to, it's already really been addressed, that great information that Detective Aguiar had about the cell phones was absolutely amazing, and very important to have, that we would have that in those kits for sure. Yes.
Okay, so we can pursue, again, at the steering committee, we'll do some work with our partners between now and the steering committee meeting in February, so that we can bring back to the steering committee some options and some more information on that. But again, with strategy 3, I think that may be needing more discussion at the steering committee level. So if we can get just direction, which I think the commissioner just gave us, on the strategy 2, and we have some movement forward on strategy 1, that would be fantastic. So if I can just get I guess we could call it a vote of confidence to move forward with those 2 items, that'll put us on a path where we can say we've got the support of the full board.
I make motion to move forward on strategy 1 and strategy 2.
Thank
as
you. I
we
was hoping
discussed.
someone would pick up on that.
It's, Charles Clear, I second that.
Great. And then you did
Lisa,
touch
do we all
on.
need to vote on that?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'm usually the one reminding you of
Thank you.
that.
All right, so to vote on strategy 1 and 2, all in favor? Aye. Looks like we passed. Thank you.
Fantastic. So then, again, going back to the second page of that grid, for the value proposition, the bold action plan, providing specialized training for foster families was discussed a little bit by Ms. Ballier when she was contributing to the meeting, and advertising for more trauma-informed foster homes, which she did state that they could use some help with. So again, between now and February, before the steering committee meeting, we can follow up on those 2 items. So I guess if we can get another vote for the second value proposition, strategy 1 and 2.
I make motion to move forward with what was just discussed with strategy 1 and 2.
Anyone want a second?
I second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed.
Okay. Madam Chair, would you like me to take the staff report?
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. HTV, if you could bring up the anti-human trafficking campaign, that would be the slides from FKQ. Thank you. So for any of you who saw the Board of County Commissioners meeting and Chair Klug give the report, the annual report to the board, the campaign is in full swing. Hopefully, as you've been driving around town or visiting different venues, you've seen some of this advertising. We've got coverage at all the key venues, the Tampa International Airport, all of the stadiums, the Port Authority, the Convention Center, Ybor City, down at Water Street or Channel Side, depending on how you prefer to refer to the area. There's heavily advertised in those areas with kiosks, with Ubers or rideshare cars advertising the campaign. They have had some pretty staggering numbers. So if we can skip forward to the media schedule, you can see that the number of impressions that were estimated for the budget that they have, those numbers, I mean, 75 million impressions is I think, a pretty high number. They have been able to leverage the funding that the board decided to give them for this campaign. And they've gotten free advertising, they've gotten campaign schedules that go beyond what we had engaged them for, because the partners, whether it's radio stations or TV stations, and just a shout out to WFLA, they've been fantastic. They have provided a lot of coverage beyond what we're actually paying for. So there's a lot of public service announcements, there's a lot of airtime on specific shows, mostly in the morning shows. They did a lot of coverage during, well, we're still in January for Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So they've been a tremendous partner, as have a lot of the other commercial stations, and those are listed in the slides with the radio PSAs that have been running. Bulletin boards have been out along all of the major roadways. And this is not just talking, we talk a lot here, or you talk a lot here, I I keep saying we, but at the Commission on Human Trafficking, you talk a lot about the sex trafficking side. But this campaign is also including the labor trafficking for victims who are in servitude, whether it's, in a home or at a business, and they are labor trafficked and not sex trafficked. So I just wanted to point that out because it had come up as a concern by some of the members that labor trafficking be included, and this campaign certainly does that. They've wrapped buses and bus shelters around town and targeted key areas at the request of the commission. They have saturated the East Tampa area, East Hillsborough, and South Hillsborough. So Adamo Drive, Broadway in East Tampa, Plant City in East Hillsborough, and Waimama in South Hillsborough, and additionally in the USF area. They have focused some strategic efforts in strategic locations, again, at the request of the commission. So if anyone has any questions about how the plan is going or would like to hear from FKQ, just let me know, and I can get those questions answered for you.
Yeah, so are any of those billboards, like in the Waimama area, in Spanish at all, do you know?
Yes, I believe they are. I can verify that for you. They are rotating billboards, so it'll be English and Spanish rotating.
Okay, thank you.
There, yes, thank you, Captain Carlisle. There are examples of the Spanish language billboards provided by FKQ. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
You said FKQ was on the line?
No,
They're not.
I didn't have them join, unless they joined in without my knowing. No.
I just thought maybe they could answer the question that Sergeant had about the hashtag.
Oh,
So-
I thought that was answered.
Was it answered? No.
No, yeah.
No.
No, I had just mentioned that maybe FKQ could provide the information that was requested from Sergeant.
Well, I don't know if they own that hashtag. I mean, I'm not a social media expert by any means, so I don't know how any hashtag is tracked.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned, because you can hashtag to group something for notification. For example, if you have a party and you create a hashtag for it, and then every picture that is taken and with that hashtag will go into, it's kind of like a monitored area. So my concern was, if we're putting hashtags on there, that people who are very familiar with social media will think that that is also a way to notify law enforcement. And I don't know if anybody's monitoring those hashtags, because I know that we're not. So, and if we were, we would have to, it'd be a whole thing for us to set up to monitor that.
Sure. I will ask that question. I'm not sure if individuals, I guess when somebody uses the hashtag, their profile is connected to that usage of the hashtag. I don't know what goes into tracking that.
So if you have a public profile, then yes. And so anytime that you tag that, like you can upload a picture and then hashtag anything in it. You can hashtag as many things as you want. And so I'm in agreement that if somebody's not monitoring it, that how do we really know? And if somebody's reaching out thinking that that is a way to reach out, because the thing is that not necessarily maybe an older generation, but the younger generation that is using a hashtag, they use a hashtag for everything. So if they see that, and like she said, if you're at a party or an event or whatever, there's always a hashtag there that's included, and somebody is looking at that and posting those somewhere. Same thing like Super Bowl or any big event, that they're all going to be hashtagging. Sure. They'll make a hashtag for that. So.
Okay, I'll get in touch with FKQ and see if there is a way for monitoring. I don't know that they would do that. but we'll have to, maybe I could work with law enforcement since you all seem to know a lot more about this than I do. So we can get a handle on that.
Yeah, it may be just to not make it a hashtag, 'cause I think that it was put there to be trendy, but I think that maybe somebody who thinks that that's part of the reporting process, it may just be easy enough to take out the hashtag, rather than try to find another way to monitor and report through social media, especially with something as broad as human trafficking that's nationwide or worldwide. Don't Buy It Tampa Bay is going to be pretty specific to here.
Yes, and I'm thinking too, it's also on the murals that were
Yep.
just approved.
That's where I saw it, was the mural.
Right,
That's where I brought
in
it
that
up.
discussion. Okay, so.
Yeah, and it's because it's right next to the phone number.
Right,
It's
sure.
almost as part of, as a way to report.
Well, and the other one is just hashtag human trafficking, and that is just so broad. You're right about the Don't Buy It Tampa Bay. That is specific, but the other one is very broad. So we'll have to revisit that. You already approved the murals by unanimous vote, so I don't know if we have to go back to the drawing board with that one, but I'll see.
We can we go
Minute
back
to think
and-
about that.
Lisa, can we just go back and re-vote now that we have a better understanding and have been educated on the hashtags? Because I think a lot of us had no idea about that connection.
I don't think that we have to take it out of the Don't Buy Tampa Bay. I think it's the human trafficking that we're agreeing on, of that it's such a wide and such a broad, because Don't Buy Tampa Bay would be just here for us. I mean, it's not like that's all over.
I know, but I already have like one analyst who's dedicated to monitoring the
Oh, I
tips
know.
for, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I know, yeah.
To try to have another analyst monitor hashtags is pretty difficult. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the hashtag human trafficking is not monitored federally by, HSI or something.
I'm sure they all do, but.
But no, Don't Buy It Tampa Bay is not going to be monitored by anybody.
I wonder if Leah is still on the line, or if she left because she's pretty savvy with social media and don't know if she
No,
might
she's
contribute.
yeah,
Okay,
dropped
she's
from the
gone.
call.
We let her go, okay.
Well, the only advice and it would be up to you, I would need a motion to rescind the vote that had taken place earlier. So that would have to be motion second and voted on. And then I'd need another vote to remove the hashtags from the public art installation. I don't know if you want to remove both hashtags or just the one. And I'd have to go back and discuss with FKQ, because I have to look at their materials to see if they're using hashtags in any of their materials. I mean, just a quick look, it doesn't seem that they are using any hashtags in the media campaign, so it would just be the murals that would have to be re-voted on. So it's your pleasure. If you want to take out one or both hashtags, that would be up to you.
Vote on them separately. Vote on them separately.
Yeah. I think we should just amend it with respect to the hashtags. The murals themselves, we still have to go through the process of going through the district secretary, and potentially the governor, and that language may not get approved anyway. So we may be coming back to us a little bit later on with some modifications potentially, but
It's possible.
I think we give a vote on the hashtags just to take the hashtags out for now, just for that one issue.
Okay, so first I need a vote to rescind the earlier vote that you already took.
Motion to rescind the vote from earlier about the murals?
Thank you, Captain Carlisle. Was that Major Timko? Okay. We need a vote? Madam Chair?
Can we have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Can we have more discussion? Because I just want to kind of flesh out what Charles was saying. Do you want to clarify what you were saying?
Yeah, I think I was just proposing that right now we just have a vote just on the hashtags. I think we are voting on the murals themselves, and I'm not sure if it was inclusive of the hashtags, but I think we can just clarify that our vote was just on the murals, taking that to the governor, secretary and district secretary, et cetera, the DOT process. But we can just a plain vote to take the hashtags out right now, not to consider that. And we have to rescind, per se, the previous vote.
So wouldn't it be just amending our vote?
Yeah, I think so.
You still have to amend the motion. I mean, you still have to
You've already-
rescind the vote. You can't amend.
Well, we already approved it. I mean, this is where I think I think just clarifying we're not including hashtags in it. I don't know, we can rescind if you like, but. Yeah, the artwork itself, right. Right, yeah. Mhm.
Turn on your microphone, Ms. Vice
No, I
Chair.
was just saying, to Charles' point, just saying we want to keep the vote for the murals, but just we're only looking at the hashtag. So do we have to rescind?
I mean, it's a
that whole
technical.
vote? I don't know.
It's technical. To me, the mural includes the hashtags. I mean, it's all there. So, I mean, just to keep it clean, vote on the rescinding, and then just make another motion to approve the murals without the hashtags included.
Can I just say that, so while you guys are talking, I just got on Instagram, just one platform, just to see. And Don't Buy It Tampa Bay, Leah's on there with the hashtag. Heartline is on there for transit. There's also Junior League of Tampa Bay is using that hashtag. And some, daytime talk show is using that hashtag for the Don't Buy It Tampa Bay. So, but again, I don't know, I'm in agreement, I don't know who's monitoring that if somebody decides to use that as a way to report or think that they can use that as a way to report.
So
We have a motion, a second to withdraw. We can just re-vote. That's fine.
Okay, so I've got a motion to rescind by Captain Carlisle, seconded by Major Timko. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed?
Okay, and now if we have a new vote to approve the artwork without using hashtags. So let me
I just wanna-
clarify.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
The words will remain, but the little symbol for a hashtag will come off.
I move.
Second, Isabella.
Vote to remove the hashtag and keep the words "Don't Buy It Tampa Bay" and human trafficking and the murals.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Now we have a clean record. All right, so, moving along. The budget update. So in your packet, it's very short, it's very clean. Hopefully my math is correct. I just wanted to provide that to all of you so you know where we stand at this point in time for fiscal '25. And the internal budget process for Hillsborough County has already begun. Management and budget is eyeball deep in the budget process. So at the next steering committee meeting, the more particulars of where you want to spend this money is going to be allocated and what processes we're going to use to get there. While I'm on the subject of the steering committee, and I apologize to everyone that I did not list this separately on the agenda, but I have here the members of the steering committee and members of the legislative and judicial committees. So at the organizing meeting, typically you can either decide you want to join the steering committee or the legislative and judicial, or if you want to come off. So I have these sheets here if everyone wants to see me after the meeting and let me know if you would like to join the steering committee or the legislative and judicial committee. That would be helpful. Everyone is welcome to attend any meeting, any committee they so wish, but I do need to have a roster for each of those committees. So that is my report.
Can I ask, Lisa,
Oh,
is it
yeah.
in our bylaws, like how the makeup of like the steering committee or any of our subcommittees would be? Because I was just,
There's not specifics. It's, and I can see the county attorney is flipping pages in her book to answer that question more specifically. Off the top of my head, what I recall is that the committees are formed by vote of the full board. Previously, and this is a change, the previous bylaws, it was solely up to the chair to decide if a committee was going to be formed. That was changed to get the input of all of the members on the formation or the dissolution of a committee. So it's a more egalitarian process, and that was the change. But I don't believe there is specifics of who will be a member.
No.
okay,
And that is correct.
okay, thank you.
It's about what it entails. The steering committee and the legislative judicial committees are held on the same day, one after the other. So the legislative and judicial follows the steering committee meeting. Sometimes if there's not any legislative process going on, the meetings are suspended. Generally, I can tell you last year there was one meeting of the legislative and judicial. If something came up, it was discussed at the steering committee meeting. So it's really the steering committee that does the bulk of the discussion in detail. And if something new is to come up, the process is that it goes to the steering committee first, and the steering committee makes a recommendation to the full board. Meetings are about an hour and a half for the steering committee, and legislative and judicial, like I said, it depends on what's going on. Legislative and judicial does not mean anything even close to lobbying, if that's what you're thinking about. It isn't. It is more of a discussion on how, what the legislature does and what they pass impacts the members sitting around this table. That's all I have. And there's one other item under staff report, and that was the incident report, the Department of Justice incident report that went out. I'm sorry, I had a question. I was looking down.
Oh, no, I was just going to, just to clarify what you're saying about the committees, and you're absolutely right, we cannot advocate on this legislative committee. It's just really give an update what's pending in Congress and also at the state legislature. So it's talking about bills that are going up, so we can't advocate one way or the other. And then judicial-wise, we've talked about options courts and things like that, anyone interested in that. And then we had more committees in the past, and we've actually conflated those into just these two committees. So there's always a possibility later on, if you wanted to bring back some additional committees, we could go back and revisit those issues. I think we have education or marketing. We had different names as well.
It was education and outreach.
Outreach. Mm-hmm. There were numerous committees, and so we just brought them down into these particular committees, but we encourage everyone, of course, to participate.
Trying to reduce the number of meetings that you all have and consolidate them all into the two, really, the full board and the steering committee.
I'm sorry. Could I just ask, so we're talking about legislation, I know, and maybe Mr. Parkinson can talk about this, that they and Commissioner Cepeda did include human trafficking as part of their legislative initiative, so whoever would like to speak to that, would love to hear it.
So that was the issue that I was going to bring up. One of the major items that the legislative committee worked on last year is verbiage to have that added to the county's legislative plan, which went before the Board of County Commissioners on January 15th. And it was successful, and it was incorporated into our lobbying plan. federal lobbying plan. So that gives our local advocates the ability to communicate with our contracted lobbyists in Tallahassee to make sure that the needs of HT survivors and victims are addressed in any legislation. So that was successful.
I would point out that it was not included in the state package, but I think the state is already on board with a lot of HT legislation. I think last session we saw more HT legislation be passed than in previous years. So I don't know that was.
Except for 2014, 2015. Yeah, we passed a lot.
So,
in the state.
Yeah. But then the last thing under staff report was the Department of Justice Human Trafficking Incidents Report that was provided by Mr. Parkinson. That was distributed to all of you. So I wasn't sure if anybody had any questions about that he could answer.
No, absolutely. I just want to make sure that everyone received that. I always like to make sure that you guys are up to date on current innovations and data on human trafficking. This data, of course, at the federal level. The feds are always a couple of years behind in their data collection and stratification, but that's okay. But there are some good morsels of information because it's vital to keep an eye on what's going at the federal and state level. I'm not going to go over it at length. You all have copies of it, but I did want to point out some of the highlights. And this would be for 2022, so again, a couple of years behind. So U.S. law enforcement agencies reported an estimated 2,950 human trafficking incidents. 81% of those were sex trafficking, 19% were labor trafficking. About 70% of both sex and labor trafficking incidents involved a single victim. 2/3 of sex trafficking, or 66%, and labor trafficking, 68% incidents were not cleared by law enforcement, meaning the incidents did not result in an arrest or exceptional clearance. Law enforcement agencies reported an estimated 3,570 human trafficking victims. Of these, 78% were sex trafficking and 22% were labor trafficking. So there's a difference between the incidents and victimizations. So we often have victims who have multiple incidents. So that's the clarification there. Females represented 85% of sex trafficking victims. That's a significant change from what we've seen in the past. It was tended to be 94, 95% were females. And then 64% of labor trafficking victims were females. Again, that represents a change from what we've seen in the past. And then another change that I saw that's a more modern trend is the majority of sex trafficking, 66%, and labor trafficking, 80% victims were Caucasian. So that's a kind of a shift from what we've seen in earlier years. I'm thinking back to 2010, 2015, where we had large representation of foreign nationals. We're starting to kind of see a shift in that. So again, it's federal data, it's good data, it's validated data, but it's certainly trends we need to keep an eye on.
So that concludes the staff report, if no one has any other questions. Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Do we have any data that, like, males are less likely to, come forward with, that have been through any trafficking?
So that's qualitative data, and this is quantitative data, but I have seen some research that talked about that particular issue. I've also seen research that talked about situations in which individuals that were in the country not legally, and some of the limitations on them reporting their circumstances to law enforcement. So there is some data on that. I can pull that and present that at the next meeting if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you. I think that we are ready for public comment, right? So if there are non-present registered, oh, never mind, sorry. I'm reading what I'm supposed to read. Okay, the Commission on Human Trafficking established a period at each of its regular meetings to allow citizens to speak. Anyone who wishes to speak virtually or in person during the meeting may do so by contacting the Commissioner's Administrator, whose contact information is on the Commission's webpage on the county's website, hcfl.gov. All speakers who wish to speak virtually will be required to provide their name, email, address, and telephone number. This information is being requested to facilitate the public comment process. If a speaker are present and registered, the chair will call on speakers by name in the order in which their requests to speak have been received. First come, first served basis. All virtual speakers will be muted upon joining the meeting and will be unmuted after being recognized. Right now, we only have one person, and we do have her in person, and that is Amy from the Clerk of Court and the Free Network. Welcome,
Yes,
Amy.
I am. Thank you. Thank you so much. So many of you do know me from the Free Network. I am the Director of Operations and President. We are a task force under the Attorney General, just like this commission is. I follow in the footsteps of two amazing warriors who were just elected chair and vice chair, Dottie and Connie. And when they started the organization, the whole idea was to bring together all aspects of the anti-human trafficking fight. Misty, you've been involved with us for years, service providers, law enforcement, to collaborate, not just talk and lip service, but collaborate. So that's what we do as the Free Network. We have twice monthly Zoom calls, which, yes, we are still doing them. We took a break during Anti-Human Trafficking Month because there's so much going on, but they're usually the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. If you'd like to get on the list, you can certainly reach out to me. I'll tell you how to do that after. And then we have in-person working groups. I have actually served on one of the committees you talked about. It was the Services and Resources Working Group under this commission several years ago, which apparently doesn't exist anymore, but it might again. So now I'm here to put on a different hat. I would like to reintroduce myself. I have to look at my title because I'm still learning it. I am the Associate Chief Special Assistant to the newly sworn-in Hillsborough County Clerk of Court, Victor Christ. Clerk Christ has pledged to continue the office's support of anti-human trafficking efforts and has made me the lead because this is my passion and interest and all that kind of stuff. I am totally navigating my new responsibilities. My motto is, I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know how the clerk's office will fit in, but we talked about Mr. Parkinson and I, just different ways that we can interact. I know two ladies who are going to be now on me because they know how to reach me. So we are open to whatever you all think we need to do to keep the effort going. And that's about it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you, and congratulations.
And I just say too, yes, thank you, Amy. You know, you continue to do amazing work through the Free Network, and well, a lot of us started it. And I know that you will just shine in your new role with the Clerk of Court. And I know the previous administration did have some of us come in and do human trafficking training. So I'm sure Mr. Chris would be open to that, and maybe that's something that.
Yes, I know I spoke to Shelby, who is our attorney, and she, I guess, spearheaded that, mentioned your
Yes.
name. So absolutely, whatever the next level is we need to do, please let me know.
Thank you.
So we're at the point of new business and old business. Is there any other old business that we would like to discuss?
I don't know if this comes under old or new, because I don't know if we talked about it before, but I would love for this body to have some kind of a social media presence. I don't know what that would look like, what hoops you have to, right. And maybe that's, this whole hashtag conversation got my mind going, but, you know, just to inform the community what we're all about, what we're doing. Maybe if hashtag did come to that social media site, we would have some way of, I don't know what that process is, but I would love for us to think about having a social media presence with things that happen in the community, you know, Super Bowl coming up, January Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It would have been wonderful to have some kind of a social media presence. I know FKQ, I assume they have social media sites. I don't ever recall
So we
seeing
can
any.
talk more about this at the steering committee.
Okay.
But I can say from a Hillsborough County support standpoint that our communications department does not support individual boards with communications, press releases, social media would fall under this. That's why when we had the press conference last year, that was me and Visit Tampa Bay that pulled everybody together and was able to have all of the press present for that. So as far as a Hillsborough County standpoint, there won't be an opportunity to have support of a social media account or presence. So we'd have to navigate through that if that is the desire of the board.
Okay. Because I know the Commission on the Status of Women, we have social media presence. Well, that's a county board. And maybe I should not have said that publicly,
but the Commission on the Status of Women also has a fundraising arm, right, which you do not have here. So you operate a little bit differently than this board does. And yes, you are a board appointed by the county commission. And if the structure of this board wants to go that direction, again, that's another conversation that we can start at the steering committee, if that's the desire of all of you.
Okay.
Because again, it would have to be voted on by the full board to have the steering committee take up that issue.
Okay. Ms. Skipper, I think that's an excellent idea. I think that's really awesome. And with social media, you really at no cost, it would be a matter of getting someone to actually, input all the information, so.
Because I know on the Commission on the Status of Women, Rosa, correct me if I'm not right, but it's one of our commissioners, our board members that put up the site, monitor the site, and take care of putting content on the site. So, yeah, just some food for thought.
Okay, I'll put it on the agenda for the next steering committee meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else have old business? New business?
Just want to remind everybody that the subcommittee meetings, legislative and judicial and steering committee, said that backwards, steering committee is earlier, for February 27th, 2025. That's held on the 24th floor in the conference room there. A steering committee at 1 and legislative and judicial to immediately follow. I put 2:30 on the schedule, but it's immediately following steering. And the next full board meeting is March 27th here in this room, 26th floor, conference room A and B. If anyone is out there listening and would like to participate, please go to the webpage. You'll find my contact information there and you can reach out to me.
I have one thing to add. This last month, I was asked by the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice to opine on a U.S. Department of Justice project that was looking at quantifying services for justice-involved youth that also have HT issues. Department of Justice has contracted with the University of Maryland to look at the issue and kind of pulled together a list of best practices that are happening across the country. That effort is being done by Dr. Wendy Stickle and Dr. Amanda Knapp, again, of the University of Maryland. I gave them an overview of what's happening in the state and some of the best practices that we have here. They asked for some local subject matter experts, and I gave some phone numbers and emails. So if any of you receive a phone call or an email from Dr. Wendy Stickle or Dr. Amanda Knapp, it's because they want to tap your knowledge and expertise as they go forward on this effort. But the end product is really gonna be a great work where they're gonna coalesce everything that's happening across the country, everything that's working, and that's an important part of this, and then disseminate that information to the community. So again, Dr. Wendy Stickle and then Dr. Amanda Knapp, and I'll also keep this group advised of how that process is going.
Thank you. I do have something that I would like to put in new business, and I'm sure at the steering committee we'll flush it out even more, is for the Commission on Human Trafficking to have a human trafficking conference. That we host our own conference in Hillsborough County.
I think that's awesome. I love that idea. Actually, try to look behind the scenes, trying to find out how to make that happen. When I first came on the board, I was checking into that with USF and for local and statewide, national, and international, but they really didn't want anything to do with it. I never mentioned anything about being political, but they said for that reason, they didn't want to be political. So it was the craziest thing. But yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. Very important, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we could re-look at that now with, you know, the USF Trafficking and Persons Lab and the Bright Project, that they're doing such incredible work that maybe we could revisit that and frame it in such a way that it would be clear that it would not be political.
Yes.
Well, this is a nonpartisan issue anyway,
Absolutely,
so.
yes.
Well, I think it's also important to point out that the Attorney General's office has done conferences in the past, but they've shifted to virtual for the last few years. And there may, now that we're going to have a shift there as well, there may be a desire to kind of restart that. And if we say, hey, we would agree to be your host community, let's have it here. You provide the resources and funding, and we'll help herd the cats for you. They might be willing to do that.
Steering committee
I was going to
conversation?
say, I will put that on the steering committee agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I guess at this point, we could be adjourned. Anybody want a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Aye, everybody, aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.